Greetings my friends, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So the day has finally come where I'm going to start building the structure at my bushcraft base camp. Now it's early morning, I arrived here with my friend Mark, who you may have seen on previous videos if you've been watching this series. Now the reason why I asked Mark to kindly come along with me is ambitiously I thought I'm going to be able to build this structure entirely on my own. I started looking at the dimensions of the pieces, started to speaking to people who have much more experience in this than I am, and they're like, Zed, you're not going to be able to do it on your own in terms of the actual structure itself. The rest of it, yeah, I can get on with, but the main structure, you're going to need someone with you for a whole manner of reasons, you know, to hold parts of the structure up, for making sure you cut, measure correctly, etc. So Mark has very kindly taken a day out to come down with me. It's early morning, and so the plan for today is the following. Now the pieces have been delivered with which we're going to build the structure. Now shortly when I show you the pieces, I'll explain a bit more detail, kind of the type of wood that I chose, be it green, seasoned, etc. Now the wood has actually been delivered very kindly by a friend of mine who's responsibly managed it and brought it to me. The only thing is, it's on the other side of the woodland. So we're going to ferry all that across to this side of the woodland where the actual base camp is. Now the plan for today really is to sort out all the pieces. It's going to take quite a bit of time because, you know, being wood, it kind of has its own shapes and kind of nuances, so we really need to spend time sorting out the wood to make sure that, you know, we know what piece goes where. Now thankfully it's all been cut to size. Now that should save us a lot of time, and once we've sorted out the pieces where it's going to go, we're then going to spend a bit of time working out the kind of joints that we're going to use, because remember, we're not using any nails or screws. Any cordage we are going to use is going to be natural cordage. Now the one caveat I will add is any cordage we use just for the moment may be just jute twine, like off the shelf. The reason being why, it's one of those lessons that I've learned. Making natural cordage enough for what I'm going to need is going to take quite a bit of time, and so I'm going to be doing it off camera. So any cordage we may use just for the moment will be jute twine, and I'll replace that immediately with natural cordage that I've made myself. So once we brought the wood over, we're going to sort it out into its pieces. We're going to lay it out on the floor the way we're going to build it, and also we're then going to work out the joints like I said, because that's all going to take a bit of time. We're using all hand tools, so we really need to get our head around that. So today's about getting the layout of the structure sorted out, making sure we're good to go, and making a start, seeing how we get on for today. Realistically, we're probably just going to make a start on one or two sides of it, but once we've done all that, we've actually done all the groundwork. Then it will maybe take another day or 2 days maximum to build out the rest of the structure, because working out the kind of joints, etc. that we're going to use, it's going to take up quite a bit of time. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and Mark and myself, we had a bit of experience, but this is kind of the first time that we're doing this, so we're kind of having to figure things out as we go along. And also by breaking this video up and the build, it gives time for you, the viewer, to give your input and give us some advice. As I said before, yeah, I want this to be a joint project, and there's a lot of you out there that are way more experienced than I am. Now the weather today, touch wood, is supposed to be dry for most of the day, maybe with a touch of rain here and there. Hopefully nothing too heavy will interfere with the recording. It's a very blustery day today, so my apologies if any of that interferes with the audio. So there you go, that was a long intro, but there's a lot to kind of establish here. So the build has finally begun, and this is kind of day one of the recording that we're here. It's definitely going to take maybe 1 or 2 days extra to kind of get that finished off. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video where we're going to begin the building of the bushcraft base camp. So here with Buddy Mark. Buddy Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Zed. How are you?
You're looking very professional putting together your...
folding bucksaw.
That's a nice one there, isn't it?
It is very nice, very nice. I must admit, I mean, it's a good tool. I've had this one quite a few years now. Used it a fair amount, but I have upgraded recently to the Silky.
Is that a handle? Is it a different handle?
That's a different handle. What it is, a good friend of mine, Duncan, he, I sourced the blade, gave it to him. He's a tree fella by trade, so he gets his hand on all sorts of nice materials, and he also plays about in his workshop with making handles. So he put a nice natural looking handle, so very modern Japanese pull saw Silky blade with a more traditional handle on it, and it feels actually really nice.
No, hello to Duncan, he's always very supportive of the videos.
Yeah, no, Duncan Knowles, he's a lovely man, and yeah, and he'll do all sorts of things to help you out.
what we've done is, because we're going about it quite seriously, this build, and so what we did was we just bought loads of tools. Not to say we're going to use all of them, but we bought them just in case. And so Mark's got a whole load as well that he's bought, and hopefully between us we'll be covered to build a base camp. Now the one thing I'm going to apologise about in advance is we've got a farmland over there, and they are working on it today, of all the days. So if you hear the noise in the background, it's not traffic, it's an actual tractor. So my apologies in advance. Oh, got it. Nice job there. And all this was forest, isn't it, local?
Yeah.
Done well there.
Yep, so that's bulrush and straw off the fields that the farmers kindly left us.
So here we go. This is on the other side of the woodland, and this is all sweet chestnut. So these are going to be the main poles, and these are going to be the supporting poles going across. Now when it comes to sourcing the wood, I had a choice to make. Now there were certain parts of this woodland I've been given permission to fell down the trees and debark them and process them. So I really wanted to try and avoid felling a tree where possible. Now there's not enough dead standing here to kind of build a structure. For firewood, yes, but not for the structure. And so I started a lot of hunting around. Like I said, a lot of this is new to me. So in my research, I came across a friend of mine who's a friend of the woodland owner. And what he does for an actual living, he processes wood, he trims down forests, he does coppicing, and all done responsibly. And he had loads of chestnut from an adjacent woodland that's just kind of down the road from here. And what he kindly did was he said I can have access to that. So what he's done was, rather than me having to cut down, we're responsibly using stuff that's already been taken down for particular reasons. And so we've got the supporting poles that he already had and the joining poles. And unbeknownst to me, he also debarked it as well. I thought that was something I'm going to end up doing. So he's actually done a lot of the work for me. The key thing here is that I'm just avoiding felling a tree for the sake of it. And so this has been delivered. This is the other side of the woodland, so we're going to ferry this over and get building. Now another thing I learned when it comes to building structures is the difference between using green wood and seasoned wood. And one of the first things I learned, when you're going to build a structure that has some kind of rigidity to it and longevity, you really want to be working with seasoned wood. And that also affected my decision on how I was going to source the wood. So obviously if it's something very temporary, any wood will do. But if you want to build something that has a bit of life to it, a bit of strength to it, you really want to be using seasoned wood. So thankfully, from the same friend that I sourced this wood from, it's stuff that he seasons all year round. If I'd waited for it to be seasoned if I felled it myself, I'd be waiting at least a year for me to do that. And obviously, I don't want to be waiting that long, right, to build a shelter. So in short, that was another factor that decided in terms of how I was going to source the wood. And it's all part of the learning curve. So here we got all the wood, all brought to a location. So we're going to sort these out into sizes. So we've done the main hard work, bringing them over from the other side of the woodland. Before we do that, we're going to get tanked up on some porridge. So I remember asking you guys recently about milk, using powdered milk. The problem I was having, it was kind of congealing up. And so the main bit of advice that I got from most, the consensus was that what you do is you don't pour the powdered milk. Now this is normal dairy milk that I'm just trying on this occasion. So the mistake I was making, I was pouring it straight into like hot water. They say you don't do that. So you say you put the powder in first, however much you're going to need. I don't really know how much I'm going to need. Let's just say that much for now. And what the advice was, you actually mix it with cold water first into a bit of a paste. That's what you do. So let's give that a try. I do apologise about the wind if it's interfering with the microphone, and the tractor's going off in the background. So the idea is that you mix into a bit of a paste first with cold water. Make sure there's no lumps in it. Maybe it's a bit too watery this actually, I should have put a little bit less water. But the main thing is there's no lumps in it. We'll soon find out if it works without congealing. This is a spoon from Lee Stoffer. You may have seen on my channel previously. My favourite eating spoon. So we realised at that time of year we can pick blackberries for our oats. Look at that. Oh, that's a juicy little lump there, isn't it?
Yeah, these are lovely and sweet. Just caught these perfect timing. There you go, nice handful. Good to go.
This is a Falcon kettle, isn't it? Falcon enamel.
Yeah, it's the, I think it's called a Solo coffee pot.
I love it, man.
Yeah, no, it's beauty little.
So, unless I'm mistaken, this was this is an English company.
Yeah, yeah.
But I believe, I remember I'd done the research on this ages ago. They sold it to an American company, and I believe a few years ago they bought it back. That's unless I'm mistaken.
Well, that's a little bit of history that I don't know about it, but I do know it's a British company and they're still made in Britain.
So nothing's congealed. I haven't put the tea bag in there, so we'll soon find out. But it looks promising so far. So guys, I think we had a success. No congealing whatsoever. So for those of you that commented with that suggestion, thank you so much. So here we go. Shall we nudge porridge oats?
Yeah, let's nudge porridge oats. Sorry, it's not the normal cordon bleu cookery this morning, but it's a busy day. But we do have a stew coming later, but I've pre-prepared all the veg, so it's just on the Dutch oven over the fire while we're working.
I'll tell you what, he spoils me, this guy.
Well, I get to come to all these interesting places with you, Zed, so it's not just a one-way street. Beautiful woodland here, absolutely beautiful, and apart from a bit of a breeze, it's actually quite a nice day.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a very nice day. Yeah. Touch wood, it should be dry today.
Yeah, yeah. We've got plenty of sunshine.
Man, this porridge is really nice.
I know, I'm surprised. Instant porridge oats with apple and blueberry, and of course wild blackberries, because we've just added those fresh.
That's it. Ray Mears will be proud, I tell you.
Yeah. Leeks and onions. Sweat them down and make a base for the stew. And a sizzle.
Oh, we've finally got the sizzle.
We've got the sizzle. Oh god, lost half of it.
So the idea is now, we've had our breakfast, which was absolutely delicious. Oats, cup of tea. Now we're going to let this kind of stew for a while we kind of get to work on the shelter. So my buddy Mark is getting the stew on the go for later on. We're going to actually start sorting out the pieces now and obviously get on with the build. Now I want to take this opportunity to actually talk about a friend of mine who runs a channel. It's called Sean, and he's based out in Canada, and he runs a channel called My Self Reliance. Now I'm very good buddies with Sean. We speak all the time. If you've been watching channels like Joe Robinet, then you'll obviously see Joe had done a lot of videos and collaborations with Sean. Now Sean is someone I really admire and respect. He's someone who in his early 20s by himself built a whole log cabin by himself, and all these years later, I think he's in his 40s now, still looks very young, and he's just doing the most incredible stuff. A very, very experienced outdoorsman, an experienced fisherman, outdoorsman, and at the moment he's got a lot of land that he owns himself and also that he has access to, and he's building the most impressive log cabins from absolute scratch, and he's building them all by himself. And I've learned so much by watching his videos, and also personally as well. He's been giving me a lot of advice, so to him I've got a lot of thanks to give. Now if you're not familiar with Sean, I'm going to put a link below to his channel, which is called My Self-Reliance. I'm pretty confident you're really going to like the content that he does. He's great at filming and editing, and as well as the actual content himself, he really knows what he's talking about, yet he's extremely humble. So on a side note, hopefully next year, which is 2018 from the time I record this video, all being well, I'll be doing the trip to Canada and spending a lot of time with Sean, which I'm really looking forward to. But for the here and now, he's got an inventory of videos that you're going to learn so much from all aspects of the outdoors, as well as kind of building shelters. Like I said, he's doing it properly, you know, log cabin by himself from the ground up, all the way from felling trees, processing, etc. So I'm going to put a link below to Sean, My Self-Reliance. Please do go check him out. If you like what you see, which I'm very confident you'll do, hit the subscribe button and let him know that I sent you over.
And stew. See you later.
Very good wood to build with. It's all been debarked and it's all seasoned also. Apologies about the wind if it's interfering with the mic. So these are all 8 foot. We've marked them up. So there you go. So now what we're going to do, now that we've all measured them up correctly, we're then going to lay them out on the floor the way the structure is going to be built. So what we've done with the sides, so that way it gives us a clean area to work with, structures up. Then actually one of the tasks we're going to have to do is level the ground a little bit using surrounding kind of soil and whatnot. And so far so good, gives us a clean canvas to work with. So what we've done, we've laid the pieces out now. It's probably not going to make any sense whatsoever when I show you. So this, actually let me do it from the other direction, it will make more sense. So this is the front pole that's going right at the top. That's the left. Is that the back, and this is the right. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So these are the upright. The bit that's going to go in the ground, this bit, we need to find the one that's slightly wider and the thinner bit at the top. So we're just trying to work those bits out. It's something I actually never thought of, which is a good point. So obviously the centre of gravity is more lower down. Now a foot of these at the bottom is going to go dug into the ground. So what we're going to do first, we're going to mark off a foot. We've got a proper man's pencil, so we're going to mark that off.
So that's buried.
So this is buried, never to be seen. Alright, and then what we're going to do from the bit that's going to show up over ground, we're going to go, how much you reckon?
I reckon probably about 10 centimetres, 100 mil.
Yeah, that looks good to me. And that's where the first pole is going to go. So you don't want the bottom pole that's joining the two supports to be touching the ground. That's the whole point here. And one thing I would actually stress, I was looking at the bit we're going to dig into the ground. Now a lot of people will argue you can just have it sitting on top of the ground, but my suspicion is that if it's buried a little bit into the ground, it gives it a bit more stability with heavy winds and whatnot. But then again, time will tell. So a lot of this stuff we're just going to have to find out as time moves forward. So there's that bit. Now look at actually a proof in this when it goes into the ground. Now you can do things like pine tar, coating, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. I even looked at charring the wood. There's a different schools of thought on that in terms of whether charring the wood is going to make any difference. Some people say it does, some people say it doesn't. What I've decided I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it all together. Just bury a foot in the ground and then just monitor it. You know, as long as it lasts for a year, 2 years, I'm all good. So there you go. So those are all the bits laid out. Like I said, it might be a little bit confusing, but as we start to piece them together, you'll know what we're doing. Now these bits, what we're going to now do, hopefully, is we're going to start joining these on. So we're going to join the supports that are attaching the two beams together. So what we've done, obviously we're trying to figure this out as we're going along. We realise there's a lot of time taken to think about it first before before you start chopping away. So what we've done is we've got the main support here. Now what we've decided we're going to do is like what Mark's done here. We've kind of hollowed it away, square it off as much as possible. Mark, can you just drop the other piece in,
yep,
please, just to kind of illustrate. So what we're going to do with this, we're actually going to plane the bottom off this off,
so it's nice and flat like so.
And so theoretically they should slot into each other like kind of face on face, and so these middle bits will kind of sit on the main pole and sit quite flush. And so essentially this bit here is kind of holding the weight, you know, so this is holding the weight of this sitting on top of this, if that kind of makes sense. So that's what we're going to do there. And one of the things that we learnt actually, so this is the first one that we cut, and we've learned that when we cut here, we try to do it obviously as kind of flush as possible. Now it's just slightly loose, which is not a problem, but what we learnt from the first one, this one here, is we're actually going to cut this a lot tighter. So this would have to be just squeezed in ever so slightly. In that way we get a really, really snug fit. So that's kind of one of the things we learned straight away. And then what the idea is, the theory, we're going to try that out, is we're going to use a bit and brace, a hand drill, and then we're going to drill a little hole here about 1 centimetre wide, carve a dowel and plonk that in. So that's the theory. But I'm documenting all of this to kind of show you our learning as we're doing it.
Moment of truth.
So do you want to show that bit before?
Right, so flattened out that, flattened out this side. In theory we should now be able to roll it over, square it up. Oh, that is lovely.
So I think we've got to roll that over a little bit to the left.
That is lovely and snug. Look round this edge.
Do you know what? That is looking so good.
That is. I like this edge. I do like that edge. I like that a lot.
This took us a bit of figuring out, but you know what? I think we've got it. Well, that was like the definition of teamwork there, I'll tell you.
I tell you what, I'm happy with that. As an electronics engineer, I am happy with that joint.
So with this one, do you want to measure that to that, to make sure it's kind of...
Yeah, but what I think we ought to do is do this, because all your measurements really should be coming from the bottom, from one point. That's one thing I do know with technical drawing. Yeah?
Okay, so
what you don't do is measure from that to that and then that to that, because everything starts going out.
So you're always using this as a point of reference
is
to
the bottom. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's one thing I do know for sure is the right way to go about it.
So this is the bit we're going to be chiseling out, so we've done multiple saw cuts. So in that way you take smaller pieces off without kind of having to risk chipping it off. That's nice. Now we needed a piece of a hardwood for the dowels that we're going to haul through. So found this piece of deadfall and it's seasoned, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this should be good. So we need to just kind of cut it long enough to shape into dowels. So this may not look like much, but this is Mark's bit and brace. But this bit here, the one we had was just way too wide. So a friend of ours who lives not too far from this woodland came to the rescue. I've done it all off camera. So that we had to wait quite a while for that. But thankfully, a friend of hers, she pulled through. And she's amazing, she knows who she is. She came in with the perfect size bit. To bore the hole, then we can carve the peg and put that in. So let's give that a shot. Right, you're all good?
No, I'm good. Let's give it a go.
Nice and straight. Well done, man. Looking good.
Good. Alright, so now we're down to there. Use the actual... That's what I like about that. You get a nice centre with the middle of these bits. And then that bit acts like a chisel.
So this is actually taking quite a bit of time, to be honest with you. We found a piece of seasoned wood, and a lot of the ones we found were too punky, so we think this one's okay. We shaped it as best as we can, because it's got to be a snug fit. It can't be too wide, obviously can't be too thin. So it's been a real pain. It's taken way longer than we thought it would. But here's the moment of truth. So we drilled through, found the right auger bit. And hopefully we want this to go in, so fingers crossed. How's it looking? What I think,
I tell you what, 10 mil, 10 bloody mil. Stopping for 10 mil.
Do you know, almost there, about another centimetre I think.
Zip. Don't think that's shifting any further. That's how much depth we've actually gone in with that peg.
So we've actually gone in quite a bit, haven't we, with the peg?
Yep.
I think that's looking good, Mark.
I think that's that joint done.
Oh,
that's good.
At that. So we're taking half a day to do one joint.
Yep. The reason we've left that a little bit long, if there's any movement, we've still got something to whack down further to snug the joint up. So I'm happy with that, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I am.
I am very happy with that.
So it's taken us so long to figure all that out. It was the auger bit, wasn't it?
The auger bit was
and luckily there's a friend locally, get in touch. She came down, we had to go through loads of bits to work it out. But in all that time, the stew is done. Look at that.
Dun, 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 dun.
We're getting a bubble wobble on that
We
one.
got a bubbly wobbly. A bit of a stir around. Yes, way past done. Look, everything is just going to mush. There you go, sir.
Thank you so much.
Spork a little white. There. We have a stew with homegrown potatoes, onions, leeks, carrots, swede, parsnips, potatoes.
So all homegrown ingredients, man. Check that out.
All homegrown apart from the water and the vegetable stock, bouillon, as they call it. Nice one.
Oh, that tastes good, man.
Yeah.
That tastes really good.
That good.
So there you go, guys. That is the end of day one. It's been a long day, Mark.
That has been a long day.
We've been up since about 4 in the morning. We had a drive down now. So as a recap, the following. We obviously transported the wood from the other side of the woodland, and obviously I'm very open about kind of, you know, how we do things, how we progress, how we learn, and the lessons that we learn. And the big thing we learned is it takes a lot of time to really plan what you're doing. Now, unless, we were talking about this off camera just a minute ago, that unless you have experience doing this before, something similar, you can obviously just get straight into it because you've had that previous experience. But this is really the first time we're doing it of this nature. You're working with the tools that we're doing, the way that we're doing it, etc. And it was a very, very steep learning curve. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of thinking. As the saying goes, you measure, was it measure twice, cut once?
Yeah.
Is that the one, isn't it?
That is
I want to
it,
make sure I've got that one right.
Not cut your finger off twice and
That's it.
swear twice.
That's it, that's it. Swear 4 times and then get it right once, right? So it really took a lot of time. And obviously a lot of that I didn't show in the video because I don't want to kind of bore you guys, right? Showing all of that. So there's a lot of off-camera deciding. But here's the thing, you want to make sure you're doing it properly. From the word get-go, we were checking around just to make sure it is right what we're doing. So obviously sorting out the pieces took a lot of time. And once again, you're working with a natural product. So it has its own kind of twists and bends and everything, you know. So it's not like you're buying an off-the-shelf processed piece of wood. It's a natural piece of wood, you know. It's got its own kind of like character to it. So there was a lot of that going on, but we learnt a hell of a lot doing that in that process. And then obviously we began the actual joint process. And even with the joints, we had a rough idea of what we wanted to do. And there was a lot of testing with that. Eventually we got around to kind of ascertaining. After we'd done about 2 or 3 joints, we realised, okay, we're on the right track here.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? There was a lot of kind of working with that, and that was really good. The one problem we ran into is drilling the hole to put the wooden peg, and that took a lot of time. There's a dear friend of mine, she turned up, very, very fortunate she was around. I rang her up out of despair, panicking on the phone, like, have you got any bits for a bit and brace? And she was an absolute superstar. She came in with a whole bucket of bits, you know. But then it presented another challenge for us because we had to sort through all the bits. We had to try loads of them out. Once again, a lot of it we didn't show on camera because I don't want to kind of like spend a half an hour just showing you what we're trying out. And eventually we found the bit, fortunately.
Yeah, it was a beautiful one we found in the end. That was like, well, not quite a knife through butter, but in comparison to the others, you know, you could actually feel that biting in and taking material away. Lovely.
Yeah, and once we found the bit, it just worked like a dream. But that took a good couple of hours, I think.
Yeah.
It took a long time for us to really work out. But it was all great. It's all frustrating at the time. But there was a part of me that really wanted to race ahead and get it done. But I learned a very valuable lesson today, to pace yourself out, do it properly, take your time and make sure you know what you're doing. So it's a very humbling experience. We learned a hell of a lot by doing this. Now where we're at now at the end of this day is we've sorted out all the pieces, we know what's what, we are pretty much 95% that the joints we're doing are pretty much the way we're going to move forward. We pretty much have the tools locked down, exactly what it is we're going to use to do what. And obviously we've already done about 3 or 4 joints. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back for another day, hopefully very soon. But obviously it's all depending on logistics. Hopefully Mark is free and stuff. Otherwise I'm going to be crying on my own. I'm going to be a heap on the floor, you know, trying to work it out. This is one most definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, not a one-man job. No way. There's no, unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you've got the experience, that's fair enough. You could like whack it out, but we're, like I say, we're learning on the hoof as we're going, and having 2 minds and going, right, so what do you think of this, what do you think of that, doing little sketches, you know, making little models, and then like going, right, yep, we agree, right, now how do we actually do that, how do we achieve that, you know.
There was a lot of discussion, a lot of thought and stuff, and it was all, you know, because we're going to be using it. It's not like we're talking theoretically.
No,
everything we're designing on, it's going to be happening. So so it was grateful. I'm really grateful Mark was here. He's taking a day out.
It's my pleasure. It's my
pleasure. It was really great. I'm really thankful to him. So that's where we're at with this first day. All being well, we think another 1 day should be able to do it. Possibility of a 3rd day. This is another final lesson I guess we've learned is you got to know when to call it a day. You know, even today we were kind of towards the end of the day. It's been a very, very long day, and we realised right at the end, you know, things were kind of a little bit wrong, and we were kind of muffling things up a little bit here and there, and we had to look at each other and say, you know what, enough's enough. You know, a day's a day. So there you go. So hopefully on the next visit, fingers crossed, we're going to try to get it all done. But you know what, if it takes an extra day, it takes an extra day. Like I said at the very beginning, this frame that we're building is really the central part. of the entire structure. So this really has to be right. Then the rest of it is, and I'm saying quotation marks, relatively straightforward. But this is like the real center. If we kind of mess this up in any which way,
you're going to be messed up later on. You've got to get, you know, if your frame, it's like your foundations. If you don't put a decent foundation in, your house is going to collapse no matter how well you build the rest of the house. You know, you need, and this is our foundations, the frame. So
yeah. One other quick thing, sorry, it was actually a sidetrack, is I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier in the video, but as I was doing the research for the main pillars, obviously we're going to bury it a foot into the ground, and a couple of things that we learned just recently. Number one, even though I'm doing a foot, we've been told actually by an expert it should be actually a little bit deeper, maybe about 2-3 feet. So that's one thing that we learned. The other thing that we learned is in my research, and once again apologies if I mentioned it earlier, I don't remember, it's been a long day, is about charring the bottoms of the woods to protect it against damp. Now, a couple of quick things that I learned with that is there's kind of two schools of thought. One group of people say actually it does prevent damp getting in to a large degree, not fully. Damp will still get in, but it slows it down quite considerably. And the second thing that I learned is the damp to one side. The one thing charring wood does do, it actually kills the bacteria and fungi off on the wood that will stop the eroding of the wood over time, but also it will stop or minimize to a very, very large degree fungi, bacteria, etc. in the ground eating away at the wood. So there's a couple of things that we learned. On this occasion, we're not going to char the wood. That really applies if your structure is going to be up there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So really, this is kind of, in my mindset, I've got, if this can stand up for a good couple of years, I'm happy with that. And everyone we've been speaking to who is a professional said this will more than suffice. It won't rot away within that short time frame. So there you go. Sorry for the long kind of outro, but I want to share all the lessons and experiences that we're going through. We're keeping it raw in this video. That's how we roll, Mark.
It's raw.
That's it. It's raw. It gets raw. So there you go. Please, if you've got any suggestions, if you've got any comments and feedback, there's probably those of you who experience cringing with your head rocking, looking at us thinking, what the hell are these guys doing, right? Please, any kind of feedback that that you've got, more than welcome it. We know there's many different ways of doing this, and I totally respect whatever your opinion, whatever your suggestion is. Whether you're experienced or not experienced, you know, even if you're not experienced, I'm sure maybe there's something you can teach us. Yeah. You know, so please let us know in the comments below in terms of kind of like any feedback or suggestions of what we're doing. So there you go. That is a wrap for this video. Hopefully another one day, pushing it 2 days to build the frame, and then we can kind of rock with the rest of the structure. Fingers crossed. So hopefully that will be out within the next kind of week, 2 weeks, if all being well, depending on logistics. So there you go. That is a wrap for this video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If at the very least you learned how not to do something, right? You know, with us bodging up a couple of bits of it. But please, like I said, suggestions, anything down below. I mentioned Sean earlier on for My Self Reliance. Please do go check him out. I mean, he's an actual pro. When you watch him doing it, he's like the way you actually do it, you know. I continue to learn so much from him, so please do go and check that out. I'll put a link below. Also, Instagram as well. I'm going to put a username for Mark, so if you go and search that out, please do go connect with him. No, ignore him, go and connect with him, right? And also me as well. There's a lot of photos and videos that I post up on Instagram I don't share on YouTube. Just search for Zed Outdoors. The moment you see some dodgy looking Asian bloke with a big nose, that's it. You know you found him, right? So please connect with us there, and there you go. So, as always, I hope whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. This is it for Mark and myself, Zed Outdoors. Peace out.
He needs a hat.
I need a hat.